This is a story that you were never meant to hear. And trust me, it's a wild one. A man found stabbed 10 times in his own bed, a dead wife, a shadow seen in the garden at 3 a.m, and a stalker who may or may not be human. Welcome to Stel After Dark, where we tell myths, legends, and stories that you were never meant to hear. Some are true, some aren't. You decide. So, to understand what happened here with the man stabbed 10 times, a dead wife, a stalker, a shadow, we need to start with the man at the center of all this mess. This guy, Craig Billson. So Craig's a local mechanic that lives in Southend, England. He's the quiet guy that everyone loves. Grease on his shirt, he's always smiling, always happy to help his neighbours, just all round a top guy. Sarah, his wife, here she is. She works at a care home for vulnerable adults. You know, it's a stressful job, but she loves it. And her patients, they love her too. She's just an all-round proper sweetheart. Now, because of the nature of her job, she sometimes has to work night shifts. Although she only lives 10 minutes away from the care home, Craig is always there to pick her up. They live on a quiet little residential road near the beach. It's a 3-bed, semi-detached with a nice little garage on the side. And Craig has actually turned that garage into his own little private workshop. Craig would buy broken cars and fix them up in his garage and then sell them on for a profit. It was like a nice little hobby that also paid for their holidays. But he is very protective over his garage. Like when he's in there, no one, and I mean absolutely no one, is allowed to go inside, not even Sarah. All round, they were like the model couple. But as you know, good things never last. In the summer of 1998, Southend was hit with a really unfortunate tragedy. A 13-year-old boy called Elliot Cole disappeared. He just vanished. And he was last seen turning at a junction. His 3 friends went left, he went right. CCTV footage picked him up, turning right and going home. But he never made it. A week later, his bike turns up in Hockley Woods. It's burned out and the frame is completely melted, like someone set it alight. Police searched the area and the woods for months, but unfortunately, little Elliot is never found. And it became one of those tragedies that just hangs over a town. You know, posters on lamp posts, people double checking their locks, parents no longer letting their kids walk to school on their own. Life did carry on, of course, but no one ever forgot about Elliot, especially Craig and Sarah. Now, Craig and Sarah didn't have children of their own because unfortunately Sarah wasn't able to have kids, but that only made her more passionate about getting to the bottom of this case. She saw Elliot as one of her own, as in they were a close-knit neighbourhood, and she felt personally responsible for finding Elliot and figuring out what happened to him. And Craig, well, he done what most married men do when their wife's passionate about something. He tried to help her. So Sarah and Craig literally researched every single missing person case they could find in the UK and tried to figure out patterns, what killers have done with bodies in the past, everything. And then Sarah became so obsessed that she ended up becoming really anxious in everyday life. Like she just delved straight into figuring out what happened to this boy. And it started to take its toll. Like she'd check the locks twice a day. She'd always be looking over her shoulder. And just in general life, she became slightly more uneasy. Her mental state was only made worse a year later. What I'm about to tell you is exactly what Craig Billson told police at 2 a.m. in the morning on the night he reported his wife as missing. So this is Craig's story. And it all starts at 1 a.m. on a summer's evening. Craig is waiting for Sarah outside of the care home in his car, as he always does, nothing unusual. But when Sarah comes out of the care home, Craig can immediately tell that something is wrong with her, like she's off. She seems a bit shaken, haunted, just weird, something's not right. So she gets in the car and immediately he says, "Hun, what's wrong?" At first she kind of hesitates, but eventually as they're driving, she tells him what happened that day. And she goes on to explain that one of the patients that she'd been caring for had attacked her. He tried to grab her inappropriately and he was, shouting explicit profanities at her, and it just really shook her up. It wasn't a nice experience. But as she's telling Craig this, he's fuming, like he's pissed. He wants to complain to the care home. He wants to do something because it's his wife and someone attacked her. Of course, given the circumstances, he's not going to go out there and try and get revenge, but he just wants answers. But Sarah insists, no, it's part of the job, it's fine. The patient's been relocated. I'm not going to be dealing with him anymore. Everything's okay. So after a bit of back and forth, Craig accepts it and says, listen, as long as you're okay and you promise me you're fine, then I can drop it. And she assures him there's no problem, everything's fine. But in reality, she wasn't fine, because after that night, Sarah becomes a mess. She's not sleeping, she's jumpy, she's always looking over her shoulder more than she was before, and she's cold, distant, she's just not herself. She even starts to tell Craig that she can hear noises at night and that she feels like she's being watched. So this confuses Craig, because he's like, why would someone be watching you? He starts to think maybe she's having a bit of a breakdown, the stress of trying to find little Elliot, and maybe that patient attacking her just triggered something in her and made her spiral. So he's just like, how can I help? But every time he tries to, bring up the conversation or make her try and speak about it, she just pushes him away and brushes it off and just assures him, I'm fine, don't worry. So Craig, he's like, okay, listen, that's fine. If you need anything, I'm here for you. And for now, they leave it at that. So 2 weeks go by and Sarah actually seems a bit better. Like she's put this behind her. She's forgotten about the situation at the care home and she's getting back to her usual self. But then one night around 8 p.m, Sarah's walking to the corner shop. She's going to buy herself a nice little bottle of wine to unwind while Craig does his thing in the garage. And the corner shop's around a 3-minute walk from their house. So she's walking, she's about halfway there. All of a sudden, she just gets this really weird spine-tingling sensation, like she's being watched. So she quickly turns to the left, nothing there, turns to the right, nothing. And then she turns around, does a 360, and boom, there he is. A human-shaped shadow wearing all black, just standing behind her on the pavement. Now, he's not close enough for her to be in any real danger. He's about 200 feet away. But the second that she turns around and looks at him, he just stops dead in his tracks and just stares right at her. Doesn't move, doesn't blink, doesn't do anything, just stares. And this freaks Sarah out a little bit, so she just quickly turns back around and hurries along towards the shop. She gets to the shop, goes inside, buys her wine, and steps back out. And as she steps out, she glances left, right, down back the road, and she's relieved to find that there's no one there. So she takes a deep breath, and although she's slightly shaken, she starts walking back at a quick pace. But as she's about halfway home, she gets that crawling sensation, that spine-tingling feeling, like, again, she's being watched. So her fast walking turns into a light jog. She doesn't want to turn around because she's scared that if she does, she's going to see this guy again, and she'd rather just get home quickly. But as she's jogging, she's like, stop being stupid, just turn around. So she stops, she turns, and bang, there he is again. But this time, he's much closer. He's about 30 feet away from her. And she just freezes. She's panicking, but the adrenaline surging through her, and she just shouts out at him, "It wasn't my fault. Leave me alone. It wasn't my fault." And then as soon as she says that, boom, the shadow who's 30 feet away just starts darting right towards her. She doesn't even have a second to think. She just starts running for her life. She gets home in seconds. Like, she bursts down the door, opens it, slams it shut, locks the bolts, everything, closes the curtains, and then runs straight into Craig's workshop. She bangs down the door. And Craig's sitting under a car covered in oil, and he's pissed off. He's like, you know not to disturb me when I'm in here. What are you doing? But as soon as he sees the state of his wife and how scared and shocked she is, he immediately just jumps up and says, what happened? And she obviously tells him, this stalker's been following me and he's out there, so I'm scared. So Craig puts her in the car and they literally drive around the whole neighborhood looking for this shadow stalker. But of course, they don't find anything and they don't find no one, nothing. When they get back, Craig says to Sarah, who's like visibly shaken, let's call the police. Straight away, Sarah's like, no police, no police. And this just confuses Craig even more. He's like, hold on. If someone's actually stalking you and you're in danger, why on earth do you not want to tell the police? She tries to brush it off. She just tells him to trust her. But then he says, well, listen, I mean, it's no secret, Sarah, that you're digging so deep into this missing boy. Maybe this person who's following you has got something to do with that, and they're trying to scare you or trying to intimidate you to stop looking into it. So maybe we should call the police. Very quickly, she just stops him in his tracks and says, I know for a fact it's got nothing to do with that. Something else has happened, and I didn't want to tell you to worry you, but fine, I'll tell you what happened. So she goes on to tell Craig that the patient that got moved because of her didn't just get moved. He was actually transferred to a much more secure facility that it's stricter, harsher. It's more for like people that are deemed mentally insane, basically. And it's about 2 hours north from where they live. And she goes on to tell Craig that his family, the patient's family, were not happy about this at all. So one day when Sarah finishes work, the patient's brother, a man called Stephen Hughes, approaches her and starts to berate her, like attacks her, calls her useless, rubbish at her job. She should be ashamed of herself. He literally goes in on her very aggressively. And the last thing he says to her before she walks away is, "Watch your back." Like he was planning on somehow getting revenge on her for, having his brother move to another facility. Now, Craig's just stunned by all this, and immediately he's like, well, let's tell the police. Why can't we tell the police? And what she goes on to tell him makes him scared. Because Steve, Sarah says, works for the McCabe family. Now, anyone in Southend knows that the McCabe family are not a family you want to have problems with. They own half the nightlife and control the rest. And this Steve guy doesn't just work for them. He's their fix-it man. He's the man they call on when they need someone to be straightened out or when someone owes them money. You get the idea. So straight away, Craig's like, okay, maybe police isn't the best option. I will figure this out. Let me upgrade the security on the house, double locks, cameras, alarms, everything. I've got you. Don't worry. We're in this together. And Sarah actually feels relieved. Like she really appreciates that Craig has got her back on this and that he's going to protect her and go through all these extra measures to make sure that they're safe. And you'd think that this would help. Well, it doesn't. Because a couple of nights later, Sarah's asleep in bed. She's still a bit paranoid, still a bit anxious. And while she's laying there, Craig's sleeping next to her, she can hear the sound of this chain, like a lock chain, just swinging and hitting the floor repeatedly. So at first it's just one hit, then a couple of seconds go by and then another, and then it gets faster and more aggressive. So she jumps out of bed and goes straight to the window, and she looks outside and there's nothing there, no one to be seen. So again, she's thinking, am I losing my mind here? What is going on? She gets back into bed, she lies back down, and 20 seconds go by, and yep, you guessed it, that chain sound starts again. But this time it doesn't build up, it's already quite aggressive. She tries to ignore it, she puts the pillow over her ears, but it's getting worse, it's getting closer. She just gets up and goes straight to the window again. And this time, boom, there he is. The same shadow figure that had been following her, chasing after her and stalking her, is standing outside swinging this metal chain over and over, and it's hitting the concrete. He just shakes his head, turns around and walks away. As he's walking away, Sarah just turns back to Craig, jumps on him. Craig, wake up, he's here. So Craig gets up, he's all dazed, he's confused, he doesn't know what's going on. He quickly runs down the stairs, opens the door, looks around, and of course, again, there's no one there. And this goes on for months, this pattern, this shadow sightings, noises coming from outside, inside the house, paranoia, fear. It's getting worse, and Sarah is spiraling down a road that Craig doesn't know what to do. The poor man is lost. He's worried sick about Sarah's mental health, and then he's also worried that if there is someone following her, that she's in real danger. And he's split between the two. Like, is she going crazy, or is someone actually stalking my wife? He doesn't know. So one day, while Sarah's at home resting, he's meant to go to work. He just gets so annoyed and so frustrated. He's thinking, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to figure out more information and try and get to the bottom of it. So he goes to the care home and he's ready to confront them and demand answers. So he storms in, he's all aggressive, he's all angry, demanding answers. But straight away, the care home just stop him in his tracks. And they're like, what are you talking about? There's been no patient who attacked Sarah. There's been no aggressive family member. What you're explaining, none of this is true. Yeah, there was a patient that has been moved to another facility, but it wasn't even Sarah's patient, and his surname isn't Hughes. So Craig is kind of embarrassed, and he's thinking, I'm so sorry. He just walks out, gets back in his car, and drives home. And when he gets there, he confronts Sarah, but not in an aggressive way, just he's baffled. He's like, Sarah, what is going on? The care home have no idea of any of this. Like, are you okay? Are you just making this up? Are you going through something? Should we see a therapist? What can we do to fix this? Immediately, Sarah just snaps at him, how can you not believe me? You don't trust me. You think I'm going crazy. You're meant to be my husband. I'm meant to trust you. How can I trust you? And unfortunately, because Craig is asking questions, he ends up sleeping on the couch that night. She doesn't want anything to do with it. So he sits downstairs in the dark in the living room, just staring outside the window all night. He doesn't sleep. He's thinking, if someone is going to turn up, I'm going to find them and I'm going to deal with this. But of course, no one turns up, and he's just left staring outside into darkness the whole night. So the next day, he goes to pick up Sarah from work, and she walks into the car. She's cold, she's distant, she's pissed off with him. She doesn't want to speak to him. And he just gently says to her, Sarah, I've booked you a therapy session. We need to go and get this sorted because this is going to ruin our marriage. Like, you're spiraling. Immediately again, she snaps, she starts kicking the dashboard, she starts punching him, she's screaming, let me out of the car, I want nothing to do with you, let me out, let me out. And eventually Craig just snaps. He's like, do you know what? Fine, get out and do whatever you want. This is ridiculous. So he pulls over to the side of the road, she opens the door, slams it shut, and walks off into the distance. And that, Craig tells police, is the last time he ever saw his wife. And he's sobbing at the police station now. He's crying. He feels horrible because he's like, what if someone was actually following my wife and I didn't believe her, I didn't do enough to protect her? And, they're comforting him saying, don't worry, Mr. Billson, we're going to do everything we can to find your wife. You just need to go home, get some rest, and start the investigation fresh tomorrow. So he gets home, he opens a bottle of whiskey, and he sits in the garden from 4 a.m., 5 a.m. until 9 o'clock in the morning, just drinking and crying and calling out Sarah's name. The next day, the search party starts, the flyers, the posters, the whole shebang, everything. And Craig's obviously heading it all up, but unfortunately, they don't find anything. So a day's gone by, it's nighttime, and Craig again is just sitting in his garden, drinking his whiskey, calling out for Sarah, crying and screaming, and he's devastated. Now, the next part of this story, I can't really tell you for sure what happened because none of it's documented, but I can recreate what happened from the information I do have. So neighbours reported that night they saw Craig going back into his house, depressed and drunk at about 2 a.m. He gets into his bed and he tries to fall asleep. Neighbours then reported at 3 a.m. they saw a shadowy figure limping into the Billson residence. The same shadow that apparently was stalking Sarah. Now, Craig must wake up in bed at 3 a.m., see this shadow standing over him. Before he can do anything, the shadow just attacks him and stabs him 10 times in the chest and leaves him for dead. When police arrive, it's a full-on massacre. But the police are even more confused now because in the hour leading up to Craig's death, they had started doing their own investigations. They'd been speaking to the care home, they'd been speaking to neighbours, people that know them, and everyone said the same thing. Sarah had been acting absolutely normal. She was her usual bubbly, helpful self. There was nothing wrong with her to the outside world. So naturally, they started to suspect that Craig had something to do with Sarah's disappearance, but now he's dead too. So they're thinking, who is this shadow figure? Who is this stalker? Was it all true? Sarah's missing and Craig is dead. So what's going on? So to answer that question, we have to rewind, but not to Craig, to Sarah. So 2 weeks after Craig's found murdered and Sarah's disappeared, the police receive a letter from the person who killed Craig, from the stalker, from the shadow, from this person. And this letter apparently describes the full true story of what happened to Craig and Sarah Billson. And it's told from Sarah's perspective. Sarah loved Craig, she really did. And for years, she was so happy that she'd married such a good man, steady, soft-spoken, reliable. But in the last year or so, something had changed. Craig had become distant, cold, he barely touched her, he wouldn't show her any affection, and he was spending a lot more time in that garage. And that one car that he'd been working on for literally 2 years just seemed never to move. There was never any progress on it. And every time Sarah would ask Craig, how's the car coming along? Have you managed to fix this, fix that? He would just snap at her and tell her to leave him alone and let him get on with it. And over time, it just wore Sarah down because she missed her husband and she missed the perfect marriage that they had. So one night she thinks, all right, do you know what? I'm going to fix this. I'll go to the shop, I'll buy a nice bottle of wine, I'll put some nice lingerie on, maybe I'll cook him his favorite meal, and we'll have a real nice romantic evening where we can rekindle our love and get our marriage back on track. So Sarah gets home early from work one night to surprise Craig before he jumps into his garage and disappears. But when she walks in the house, it's just completely silent. There's no Craig in the kitchen, no TV on, it's just quiet. But then she hears something. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it sounds wrong. It's like a soft noise, a whimper. It's barely a sound. And then accompanying that whimper is the sound of a chain being like banged. The same noise that she heard, or the same noise that Craig said she heard. That night she was convinced the shadow man was outside in the front garden. But this sound was coming from the garage. So confused and slightly concerned, she walks towards the garage and she's walking really slowly towards the door. Every step, she's sinking deeper into that sick feeling that you only get when you know that something's off. And she knows something's off. So she puts her hand on the garage door, hesitates, and opens it just a crack, just has a little peep inside. And what she sees doesn't make sense at first. The garage floor, which is always cluttered with tools, tires, and parts, is open, like there's a hatch there, a square cut out in the concrete. But she's never seen this before, so she's baffled. And below it, as she takes a little step forward, she can see this wooden staircase just leading down underground into this narrow little crawl space. And that's where the chain sound is coming from and the whispers. Now, what Sarah sees is Craig standing halfway down the stairs, mumbling to someone, like in a really soft voice. And then the chain sound is heard, like someone's whacking chains across the wall, or like someone's trying to break free. Sarah gasps because straight away she realizes what is going on. But that gasp is a little too loud, and Craig just turns and looks straight at her. And his eyes are black, like she's never seen her husband like this before in her life. And immediately she shits herself. He very calmly just starts stepping up and walking towards her, and she's frozen, like she can't move. As Sarah goes to turn and run, he just grabs her by the hair, yanks her back, and bang, bang, boom, kick, punch, slap, batters her. He beats the living daylights out of her, and she is bloodied, bruised, and now, unfortunately, dead on the floor. Craig, like the psychopath that he actually is, wraps her in a blanket, dumps her body in the back of his car, and drives her all the way out to Hockley Woods. He finds a beaten path, goes down it, digs the most pathetic grave you could imagine, very shallow, throws her in, covers her with some leaves and some dirt, turns around, gets back in his car, and drives home. When he gets home, he opens a bottle of whiskey and he comes up with this crazy story about how Sarah had been losing her mind, how she was convinced that someone's been following her, how this patient and his brother had been threatening her and they were connected to some sort of crime family. And he rehearses this over and over and over. And then finally, at 2 a.m., he calls the police and tells them a lie. There was no stalker, there was no shadow, there was no care home patient. All of it was made up by Craig to make him look innocent and to throw detectives in the wrong direction. But here's the part that Craig did not plan or anticipate. Sarah wasn't dead. Because the next day, Sarah wakes up and pulls herself out of that grave. She's battered, she's bruised, and she most likely is suffering from a severe case of concussion, but she's alive. She somehow spends all day getting herself out of the woods, and she makes it all the way back to her home. And by the time she gets there, it's about 3 a.m., which is exactly the time the neighbours saw a shadow walking into the Billson house. So the person who killed Craig Billson was in fact his wife. So Sarah walks into the house, it's silent, she goes to the kitchen, gets the biggest knife she can find, and creeps her way up the stairs. Craig must have been sleeping in his bed. As soon as he woke up, bang, 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 she stabbed him 10 times for the 10 blows that he gave her. When it's over, Sarah's covered in blood, she's shaking, but not from regret, more from the adrenaline and the exhaustion. She's about to collapse when she remembers, shit, there's the boy Elliot in the basement. So she plucks up all the energy she's got left and she stumbles down the stairs through the silent house and into the garage. She pulls open the hatch and makes her way into the little crawl space. And of course, what she finds is poor Elliot chained up, beaten, bruised, and gaunt, like he hasn't been fed properly in a year, crying out for help. But the worst part is that behind Elliot, in that cramped, disgusting space, are the remains of at least 3 other children that had all been reported missing in the last 2 years around the UK. Craig didn't just take Elliot, he'd been doing this for years. So Sarah unties Elliot and tells him that he's safe. It's all over now. You're going to be okay. She tells him to wait here. She's going to go and call the police. So she runs outside and she pelts it down the road looking for a phone booth. She finds one. She makes the call to the police and they come to the house and find everything. Elliot tells the police, a woman covered in blood saved my life and killed the guy that had done this to me, but I have no idea where she is. And now no one knows where she is. To this day, no one knows where Sarah went. Some people say she was so traumatized that she unfortunately took her own life. Others say she changed her name, left the country, and she's been living quietly somewhere else where no one knows what she did and what she's experienced. The only thing we know for sure is that Sarah Billson did not die in Hockley Woods that night, because the letter that police received 2 weeks after Craig's murder was from Sarah, written in her handwriting. There was no DNA on the letter, no fingerprints they could use, and no return address. But the letter was signed Sarah. So, what do you think? Is Sarah Billson still alive out there somewhere today, building a new life for herself? Or did the weight of what she experienced finally crush her? What would you have done if you were Sarah Billson? Is this a true crime or just some urban legend that people whisper about? As always, you decide. I'll see you at the next one.